Take it from me, if you want to learn how to do a handstand, you're going to need to know how to warm up properly and avoid injury. Injuries will only slow you down. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I warm up for my handstand training. It may not be obvious, but the joint taking the most burden during the handstand is actually your wrists. We learn to stand and walk on our feet, so our ankles are used to bearing all of our weight. But our wrists, they're not so used to it. Now, as you'll see in the next video in my handstand series, the first progression to the handstand is a position called the frog stand. The main purpose of the frog stand is to build strength in your wrists, forearms, and shoulder girdle. For this reason, the warm-up I use is primarily focused on the wrists, neck, and parascapular muscles. Those are the muscles around your shoulder blades. So let's get started with the warm-up, shall we? I like to start off with at least 1 minute of jumping jacks. Why? Well, for one, you want to get your heart rate up and your blood flowing. Any calisthenics cardio exercise will accomplish that, but I especially like the jumping jacks because of the overhead reach. When you reach overhead in the jumping jack, you're activating your serratus anterior and your lats, which are both used in the handstand. In case you're not too familiar with anatomy, your lats run along the side of your back and your serratus runs under your armpit. So when you reach up in the jumping jack, you're going to activate those muscles even more. Once I'm done with the jumping jacks, I do neck turns by simply looking from side to side. I like to do 10 reps per side of these. This will warm up all the muscles that connect your shoulder girdle to the top of your neck. And those muscles have weird names like sternocleidomastoid, levator scapula, but that doesn't matter. I also like to do some neck rolls like this. I don't think it's totally necessary, but it feels good, so I do it anyways. Next, focus more on the traps by doing shrugging shoulder rolls. Start off by shrugging front to back. Notice the rolling motion as I shrug up and forward, and then back and down. Here's a side view in case it's helpful. Notice as I'm rolling back, I'm doing scapular retraction, which is when you pull the shoulder blades together. And when I roll forward, I'm doing protraction, which is when your shoulder blades come apart. Be sure to roll in both directions and aim for at least 10 reps in each direction. Now we're going to do arm circles to warm up the shoulders, rotator cuff, and upper back. Here I'm demonstrating backward circles, making fairly large circles, and I'm going to do this for about 30 seconds. Then I'm going to switch to forward circles, and here you can see I'm doing them a little faster, a little smaller circles, but again for 30 seconds in this direction as well. Alright, now for cat-cow. We're going to start off with cow. To do this position, start off by bringing your chin upwards towards the ceiling, retracting your scapula, meaning pulling your shoulder blades together, and curling the tailbone upwards. Then to do cat, you want to do the opposite. Bring your chin down to your chest, protract the scapula, meaning pulling your shoulder blades apart, and curling the tailbone downwards. Now just transition between the two positions for 10 reps. This will warm up your parascapular muscles and improve spinal mobility for the handstand. Alright, now for child's pose. Basically, you're going to kneel down, put your arms out in front of you with your hands on the floor, and let your head sink down between your arms. This is a great stretch for opening up the shoulders, which will help you straighten your handstand in the future. You can also do this with your hands on an elevated platform, like maybe a step stool or a coffee table, and that'll help deepen the stretch. Okay, now we're going to start doing our wrist stretches, but before I do that, I like to just do some wrist circles like this. Helps kind of loosen up the joints and gets blood flowing. I also like to do finger squeezes. This is something I do to warm up my hands, my fingers actually. I just place my hands palms down on the carpet and I squeeze and then release, squeeze and release. And I do that over and over. This is actually really helpful because, as you'll find, handstand balance requires gripping with your fingertips. Okay, the first stretch I do for my wrists is the forward extension. Basically, I do this for about 30 seconds. With my palms down and my hands below my shoulders, I lean my shoulders forward of my hands. And this will give you a nice deep stretch in the wrists. Then I do a similar stretch for extension, only this time my fingers are pointing back towards my body. And instead of leaning forward, I lean slightly backwards. You should feel a deep stretch in the front of your wrists and forearms, meaning the part of your wrist facing in front of you. Okay, and the last wrist stretch I do is wrist flexion. I do that by placing the backs of my hands on the floor, fingers facing back towards me, and gently apply pressure downwards onto my wrists. This stretch is especially great because it can provide relief while you're practicing your handstands. So if at any point during your training your wrists start to feel fatigued, try doing this stretch for about 10 or 15 seconds and see how you feel. Alright, the last exercise I do for my warm-up is called the hollow body. The way to do the hollow body is you outstretch your arms overhead while laying on the floor, and then you contract your abs to lift your shoulder blades just off the floor, as well as your heels. You want to lift your heels and your legs off the floor as well. You do all of this by really contracting your abs, squeezing your thighs, and your glutes. And I find that if I try to keep my legs just slightly off the floor, that's actually the most challenging. And what's great about this is that you're isometrically contracting these muscles and warming them up because they're all critical. This position, actually, the hollow body position, is critical when you're holding a handstand. Alright, everybody, that's my full warm up for training the handstand. Make sure you do that before every training session. But don't just start kicking up into handstands. Keep in mind, this is the first video of an entire series that I'm making about handstand training. So make sure you subscribe to Minus the Gym and check out this whole playlist if you're interested in learning the handstand and other cool inversion exercises.